Scanning for audio.
Welcome, once again, to another Tin Dog podcast. Yes, I'm no longer talking about Season 6A or whatever actually it really was, except to say one thing. Now, I'm not a huge listener to other podcasts, especially before I've recorded my own, but I did listen to Tachyon TV, a podcast I never ever missed when it was still being broadcast, guesting on Radio Free Skaro. I just couldn't say no to listening to that. And those guys bring up a tremendous point. You see, it hadn't occurred to me, and it really should, given my area of study, that what Moffat was trying to do in his last part of the mid-season climax thing, A Good Man Goes to War, yeah, let's give it its episode title, a tiny recreation of the Russell T Davies era, or at least how that was perceived in one story at the beginning of the story, in order to subvert it in the second half. He Will Never Climb So High is basically, let's recreate the Russell T Davies era. So in fact it wasn't Moffat being lazy and recreating Russell. No, it was much more subtle. It was Moffat recreating RTD for a reason, and the reason is what we get soon, what's coming next. Now this might just be a load of fan-made-up retcon, some nonsense that people have invented in order to try and make up for something that just felt like it fell a bit short. But I'm more than willing to give anyone the benefit of the doubt, and also, doesn't it just feel a little bit like RTD bashing? Which we don't do here. No, we don't. Right, enough of that nonsense. Let's talk about some really, really old nonsense. Something from 1966, I think. Disc 1 in the new 2-disc boxed set, Earth Stories, The Gunfighters.
And lastly, sir, your humble servant, Dr. Caligari.
Doctor who?
Yes, you're quite right.
Get out of the street, Clanton. Holliday's my prisoner.
Well, that's too bad, because if he ain't out of there in 2 minutes, his friend Regret here is going to swing in his place.
Now, don't be ridiculous. Doc Holliday's a great friend of mine. He gave me a gun, he extracted my tooth. Good gracious me, what more do you want? Come along, boy, come along.
Wait till I see the doctor. He got us into this.
What's the trouble?
Nothing. We just choosing a song.
Here's one.
Let's hope the piano knows it.
Never figured you for a back shooter, Ringo.
I never figured you for any kind of shooter, Billy, which is why we'll do it my way, okay?
Well, if it ain't Doc Holliday. Who invited you, Doc?
You did, Ringo. Seemed kind of seemly to show up.
It's best to start my review of The Gunfighters with something that's very, very true and should be adopted by most people. Beware other people's opinions, and by that I include my own. Make up your own mind. Don't listen to what other people just bang on about, or even worse, everyone just accepts as real. QI have made an entire series out of this. Everyone thinks something's true, so much so that it becomes true. Isn't that actually a line in Mask of the Mandragora? Or Mandragora, or whatever we ended up calling it? Actually, no, it was Image of Vendal. Brilliant, I'm off topic already. What I'm saying is, don't pay attention to what other people believe or think they believe. Now, I know it's a bit of a theme when it comes to my reviews. Basically, I say it quite a lot. These DVDs, the ones that are left, the ones that are not as beloved of fans as some, are nowhere near as bad as everyone makes out. When I was growing up, it was generally accepted, and I never knew why until the last couple of months. that this was, the Gunfighters I mean, the worst Doctor Who story of all time. Now, until I was watching every single Doctor Who story back to back in order to write a Whostrology for every single day of the year, via every single episode of Doctor Who ever, yeah, that was a fun year and a half. I'd not seen the Gunfighters, and even then I watched it half-heartedly. It wasn't until I wandered across my review copy and really paid attention that I started developing the sort of love for this story that I really shouldn't have. Now, apparently, I've looked up into why I felt as though it was the worst story ever, and it was because I'd been told this. I'd been told this in Doctor Who: A Celebration, and I'd just believed it. It's as if someone had never seen Love and Monsters and was just told it was terrible, and then got round to watching it and didn't have any of the Peter Kay baggage and could skip over the paving stone in order to embrace it for what it was, which was a Dr. Light story with a bit of a twist. Yeah, I've got too much baggage, I'm sorry, and I will let it go, but that's not what I mean. What I mean to say is, this story is nowhere near as bad as people make out. I don't want to use words like pastiche or anything like that. And let's face it, historically speaking, it could well be set in the land of fiction. And that's some people's, well, let's use the word retcon once more for the game. And that is indeed some people's opinion. No. Well, let's look at, well, the story itself. The Gunfighters is a Doctor Who historical, and by which I mean there's no monsters. It's written by Donald Cotton, the person who also wrote The Mythmakers, a story only available on audio, which is a massive shame. It shares lots of things in common with The Mythmakers, which I'll get round to in a moment. But as for plot, well, here's something taken straight from the press release. Take a trip to the Wild West in the Gunfighters, where the TARDIS arrives in Tombstone, Arizona, 1881. The Doctor, suffering from toothache, seeks out a local dentist, the notorious Doc Holliday. Tensions are running high between the feuding Clanton family and Doc Holliday, whilst the local lawman, Wyatt Earp, struggles to keep peace. When the legendary gunman Johnny Ringo comes into town, events start to escalate. Can the Doctor, Steven and Dodo do anything to stop the situation getting worse? Or will there be a gunfight at the OK Corral? Now, yeah, we kind of know that you can't alter history, not one iota, apparently, unless you really want to. And yes, it's kind of a comedy, as is The Mythmakers, and that's fine. Now, if you read the novella, the Targus novelisation, that's full of enormous puns, plays on words, and it's quite funny. But if you're a Doctor Who fan and you want monsters and you want series historicals and you want, well, something different, does that necessarily make this bad? The answer, of course, is no. It just makes it not up your street, and that's not a crime. It was seen as a crime by a lot of people, but no, it's not a crime. Just like The Mythmakers, it opens with sort of 3 episodes of, well, I would say loose farce, with Peter Purvis singing for a change, mainly because the actress playing Dodo announced to the cast that she couldn't. And the plot follows a very similar plot to, of course, the 1957 film Gunfight at the OK Corral. It doesn't really follow the plot of what, well, according to historians, actually happened. There are people in this who don't exist in real life, who only exist in the film. But that's hardly a problem, is it? It does leave more credence to the whole theory that this took place in the land of fiction, but that's just the sort of thing fans make up. Accept this as a parallel universe, if you really, really need to. Now, one of the things that this story is also noted for, as well as being the Doctor in the Wild West, yes, we all know why To Entertain have released it now. It's a Doctor Who story where the Doctor wears a hat, and it's in the Wild West. We know that To Entertain are kind of looking for tenuous links with the Doctor Who that's on TV in order to kind of spread it out. Can you imagine being sent to the shop and saying, I'd like the one where the Doctor wears a Stetson hat? Oh yes, of course, sir, it's this one, and walking out with the Gunfighters. Do you honestly think that would happen? I doubt it. But moving on. In one Doctor Who book, there was a memo mentioned, and the memo was sent from one person at the BBC to another, reviewing this programme in-house, saying that it wasn't particularly good, which also adds credibility to the arguments that it was terrible, which it wasn't. The set design itself is great. The look of it is really good. It's filmed very, very well. The acting is actually of a very high standard, but yet it's still seen as something not great. Is it because it's a comedy? Yes, I'm guessing we're going that. But also another reason it's disliked is because Linda Barron sings. Now, for Doctor Who fans of a certain age, Linda Barron is, of course, the Pirate Queen Captain out of Enlightenment. She is in this series, the next one, Series 6B, or whatever you want to call it, at some point, apparently according to Doctor Who magazine. But here, she's the person singing. Now, for my daughter, Linda Barron is, of course, Auntie Mabel, who travels the world in her aeroplane and her dog Pippin, singing songs and discovering interesting facts about how soap is made, brushes, bricks, and the like, in the kids' TV series Come Outside. But here, Linda Barron, who must have been, well, you know, a stripling as far as I'm concerned, sings the Ballad of the Last Chance Saloon. Now, it does indeed get on a lot of people's nerves. It goes on. It's a sort of folksy song playing in the background. But I can live with that. I don't know whether you can, but I really can live with that. It kind of describes the narrative, but not in that much depth. And it's played in its entirety over one of the extras on the DVDs. So as reviews go, it basically comes down to this. Don't listen to what other people have said. Make up your own mind. It's nowhere near as bad. But as always, it's the extras that make this disc worth owning. Now, the fact that it comes in a double box set with something else that a lot of people also ignore, the Awakenings, which I'll be reviewing next time on the Tin Dog podcast, that's fine. But here I'm just talking about the one story. The extras on the Gunfighters, well, you've got your basic 4 episodes, and they come with a lovely, lovely commentary. That's with Peter Purvis, Shane Rimmer, David Graham, Richard Beale, production assistant, great name this, Tristan DeVere Cole, and it's all moderated by Toby Haydock. But best of all on this entire disc is a 45-minute documentary called The End of the Line. The description in the press release is quite good, and it sums it up very well. After 2 years on screen, Doctor Who has become a television phenomenon, regularly reaching audiences of 10 million viewers. But with a change of producer and script editor and the looming prospect of losing the lead actor, the programme's third year was one that would make it or break it, with actors Maureen O'Brien, Anne Wills, Peter Purvis, script editor Donald Tosh, new series writer Gareth Roberts, and long-time Doctor Who viewer Ian Levine. Why Ian Levine's been described as a viewer and not a fan is, well, that's up to the person who writes these press releases. Basically, it's a brilliant, superbly made documentary, and I cannot emphasise that enough how good it is, looking at this incredible period of Doctor Who. Because if it hadn't have been a success in the third year, it would have been gone and forgotten. It would have become Adam Adamant, or something even more forgotten than that. So yes, it's important. Through all of this, Purvis gives up some great information. He's opinionated, but he's more forthright and more interested in what's being said around him than he was on the Ark documentary. And in this documentary itself, very, very good. Yes, there's the Coming Soon, which has got Paradise Towers. We'll get back to that one, dealing with the wonderful world of Langford later. Photo gallery. Now, this photo gallery has in the background the entire Ballad of the Last Chance Saloon playing, which is pleasant. And of course, my beloved production subtitles. I can't do without them. And so before I go, it's time for another Whostrology. Oh, and listen beyond the credits for a little something I'm sure you'll enjoy. So until next time, be seeing you. And now a Whostrology reading for Daniel Christopher Abbott, born on the 27th of June 1972, in the time of the Third Doctor. You were born between the Time Monster and the Three Doctors, and on the anniversary of the showing of Sensorites, Part 2. Your Whostrology reading. A foam budgie recently haunted your nightmares. Your vehicle will become your own very soon. Consider doing a job for your oldest friends in exchange for the return of your driving license and attending your first family reunion. Meeting heroes can be a hollow experience. You never regret learning that old musical instrument. Jelly is never scary. Who would have thought that there was nothing to fear at all? Not even in the dark. Huge shoes will wait in the wings for a week, while some people use a tradesman's entrance. Carrying a torch will impress people. You have been listening to the Tin Dog Podcast. Doctor Who and its associated shows are all trademark of the BBC. No infringement is intended. Contact us at tin-dog@hotmail.co.uk.
So fill up your glasses and join in the song. The law's right behind you and it won't take long. So come you coyotes and howl at the moon till there's blood upon the sawdust in the Last Chance Saloon. With rings on their fingers and bells on their toes, the girls come to Tombstone in their high silk hose. They'll dance on the tables or sing you a tune for whatever's in your wallet at the Last Chance Saloon. There's gamblers from Denver, there's guns from the south, and many a cowboy with a dry mouth. There's a ragtime piano and a small back room for to sleep off your troubles in the Last Chance Saloon. It's your last chance of earning your gunfighter's fee. The pay is in dollars, but the bullets are free. It's your last chance of cussing and a gunfighter's doom. It's your last chance of nothing. It's the Last Chance Saloon. So the cards they are drawn and the chips they are down. Them outlaws and lawmen are heading for town, and the Earps and the Clantons are aiming to meet at the OK Corral near Calamity Street. So the Earps and the Clantons are aiming to meet at the OK Corral near Calamity Street. It's the OK Corral boys of gunfighting fame, where the Earps and the Clantons, they played out the game. They played out the game, and we never more shall hear a story the like of the OK Corral. It's the OK Corral boys of gunfighting fame, where the Earps and the Clantons, they played out the game. They paid for their sin and they've lost on the draw. For the Earps they was faster and they was the law. So beware, all you cowboys who's yearning to sin. If the Earps is the lawman, you ain't